Most people know they're supposed to give their dog enrichment, but unfortunately, most people think that that enrichment is about food puzzles and 2-mile walks. But actually, enrichment is a full encompassing topic, far more than just a couple food games. So in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down what enrichment actually is and how you can best give it to your dog. Coming up. What's up, guys? It's Jenna with Dog Liaison, where I coach you on how to enhance your dog's mental health. I'm a professional dog trainer who works solely with dogs facing anxiety disorders. And in my signature program, the Recovering Rover program, I give my clients, my human clients, a method called the Dog Breed Self Method to make sure that they are enriching their dog's life the best way they can. And in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down a little bit of what's part of that DBS method for you. So what is enrichment? Well, enrichment actually started in captive animal zoos by Dr. Hal Markowitz. And he was really looking at how can we make our captive animals feel more comfortable in their environment so that they live physically healthier and mentally healthier, not to mention emotionally healthier, lives. And this would yield better results for breeding programs and for the sustainability of the zoo. So what they really were establishing was that the best way to give enrichment to a species is to try to replicate in their captive environment as much of their wild environment as possible. So basically, we would take whatever their species would typically experience or do in their natural environment out in the world and try to integrate that into their captive world. And that is what I want you to think about for enrichment of your dog. Think about all of the things that your dog would need to survive on his own some 15,000 years ago when we first started domesticating dogs, right? And try to integrate that into your home. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying make everything raw and you don't need to make a forest in your backyard, and I'm not saying 86 the crate. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm saying we need to be looking at the essential needs of your animal. And those sensory experiences are one of the more key cornerstones of that enrichment environment, right? So the ability to see, smell, hear, feel, and taste. Those are 5 very important things that your dog needs in order to be a dog, right? And so we can start off with the 2 that we know are probably the most important to your dog, which is sniffing and hearing. Their capacity to smell and hear is beyond anything we can fathom. One of the easiest ways that you can do right now to start giving your dog more enrichment and really tap into those sensory needs specifically is to 86 the structured walk. Get rid of it. And what I mean by that is don't feel like your dog has to be in a heel the entire 2 miles that you walk. I promise you that is not giving you the most bang for your buck. If instead you go on what we call a sniffari, where you really put your nose on the ground, well, your dog is putting their nose on the ground, they're really investigating, they're walking in zigzags as opposed to a straight line, they're tracking, right? And they're getting to go backwards. So sometimes when they walk towards something, they get a whiff of it in a wind and they go, oh, I want to go backwards and investigate that thing. Letting them explore with their nose is the best way to really tap into that. It is the most time productive, in my opinion. And just start going on walks that are led by your dog's nose and not by your feet. Another tip to really help with that sniffing is to manipulate the smells a little bit. Consider using things like candles or perfume. But for example, I'm working with a client right now who their dog is a golden retriever named Zeus, and Zeus really likes the smell of his mom and dad. He particularly likes hanging out with their clothes, with their socks, with their everything. He likes their scent specifically. So what we're doing is we're taking things that are his. He has a stuffy that he likes. We're taking a stuffy and we're rubbing it in their laundry. And I know that seems a little bit crazy, but I promise you it has changed so much, because now Zeus no longer feels like he has to go steal their scent from them, but instead we're providing that scent for him. He doesn't have to hunt for it. Something that people don't realize is when your dog is going crawling through your laundry hamper looking for that stinky, sock or that stinky pair of pants, whatever it is, your dog is foraging. Your dog is putting his nose in the middle of a gopher hole and hunting for gophers and all of the other critters that are in the middle of the dirt. That is what his body is doing for him. So when you give him opportunities to take that behavior of foraging, of hunting, of sniffing, and put it in a context that is healthy for him, you will no longer get these other behaviors where he's digging through your hamper. These behaviors are habitual. These behaviors of foraging, these behaviors of hunting for food, even counter surfing. I have a video on counter surfing. And one of the things that I regret not mentioning in that video is the fact that counter surfing is normal. That counter surfing is just your dog's way of being a dog. That it's normal for them to hunt for food. It's normal for them to have to push things out of the way. It's abnormal for our dogs to have food hand delivered to them and put on the bowl, and then it just shows up and they don't have to work for it all. That is not enrichment. Yes, you're feeding your dog and that's great, but putting it in a bowl and handing it to them is not something that would be normal in their wild life. It is a very domesticated process. And if you want to get more enrichment out of it, you are going to try to 86 the bowl as much as possible. One thing I tell all of my clients is I am not an anti-bowl feeder. I'm not saying never feed your dog in a bowl. I'm not saying that, because there are definitely times and places where it's convenient and it's necessary, and that's cool. All I'm saying is that if you feed your dog 14 meals a week, try to make 10 of those or so in enrichment feeding, where he has to find his kibble in the backyard and it's all spread across, the grass, and he has to really put his nose down and hunt for it. And if it takes him 30 minutes to eat his dinner, then guess what? It took him 30 minutes to eat his dinner. It's okay. Next, don't underestimate the power of sounds. Sounds are actually one of my favorite ways to give calm enrichment. I mean, sounds can be stimulating. They can really kind of awaken the dog, especially if you use squeaky sounds and squeaky toys and things like that. But I actually prefer to use sounds to soothe. So things like wind chimes or things like playing soft music. When I'm working, I naturally listen to classical music. It helps soothe me. And I actually started to pay attention and notice that it helped my dog as well. And so in moments that I need to kind of simulate a calm moment that's going to tell him, like for example, my dog is afraid of fireworks. When we play fireworks, we also play classical music. So really setting the tone. And one thing that you can start to do is pair a certain sound with a certain smell. So for example, every single time your dog smells lavender, he is also going to hear birds chirping from YouTube, and he's also going to go in the windows and sunbathe, right? And that really is enrichment. That moment and alone, no food whatsoever, is enrichment. Hey, Jenna from the future. So I was just editing the video, putting all this video together, and I realized I forgot to mention my most favorite book, which is Enrichment for the Real World. It's by Ali Bender and Emily Strong. It's a really, really good book. I'm going to link it in the description box, so make sure you check it out. This is the Bible for enrichment on dogs, and I'm so sorry I forgot about it sooner. So the first pillar stone of enrichment is really that sensory element. Another pillar stone of enrichment is what we call agency. Now, agency is just a big, fancy, nerdy way of saying giving your dog control over his environment. The one thing that unites all species on the planet, the one thing that we all have in common is our desire to be autonomous. We want to make decisions on our own. We want to problem solve. We want to live our own lives. And your dog is no different. So much of your dog's life right now, if you really think about it, is dictated by you. You dictate when he sleeps, you dictate when he eats, you dictate when he goes for potty, you dictate when he goes for a walk, you dictate when he does anything. And how sad is it for your dog, who's now in a captive environment that has been removed of all of his ability to make choices? Humans are the only ones that give dictations. No other species does that. So when we're looking at this, we need to be thinking, how can we provide our dog the ability to have control over his life? The reality is that we have domesticated him, and there are certain things that we have to control. Maybe we have to control the times of the day that he eats, and that is just how we can live a conducive life. That's understandable. But do we have to control which route he takes on a walk? Probably not. Maybe instead of telling him we're going this way, you say, we're at a corner. Which direction do you want to walk? And the second that he starts walking in one direction, we go, cool, we're going to go that way. Or maybe it's a matter of giving your dog the opportunity to pick the right toy that he wants to play with. You give him an option of 2 toys and you say, okay, which toy do you want? And you go and play with that one. Or maybe it's a matter of letting him choose what treat he wants to use in training, right? You play pick. If you don't know how to teach your dog pick, you can check out this video where I teach you that. And you really give your dog the empowerment to make choices. Sometimes you will hear that anxious dogs have a hard time making choices, that anxious dogs actually prefer structure and almost being told what to do. And here's the thing with that. I agree that anxious dogs tend to like repetition. Anxious dogs like predictability. And sometimes when we implement structure into our dog's life, whether that's dictated or not, that does comfort them because it's predictable. It does comfort those anxious dogs because they know what's about to happen. But that does not mean that anxious dogs like being told what to do. Those are 2 different things. Liking predictability and liking being told what to do are 2 different things. So when we empower our dogs with choices, they become so much more intelligent. They become so much more aware of their environment, and maybe they don't always make the right choice, but you would be surprised by how smart your dog is if you just let him have some agency. Another pillar of enrichment is the perception of safety. And I emphasize the word perception because there is a huge difference between being safe and perceiving that they're safe. Those are 2 different things, okay? Perceiving that you're safe really is a degree of comfort. It's an emotional state. And that is what the next part of enrichment is really making sure that your dog is emotionally content and happy in the right place. Again, enrichment is so much more than a food puzzle. Enrichment is about how much stress is your dog under. Enrichment is about how often is he fearful. Enrichment is about how often does he feel like something is out to get him or something is a threat to him or his livelihood. So it's not a matter of eliminating all threat from your dog's life, right? That would happen in the wild too. The wild is also going to have perceived threats. So that's not our goal. Instead, what our goal is to empower our dog with as much perception of safety as possible so they never really feel like they're in immediate danger. And secondly, especially the things that aren't real dangers, your dog shouldn't think that they are. So if your dog thinks that his next door neighbor is the most evil guy on the planet and you like to have your neighbor over for meals every Sunday, you should probably change your dog's association with your neighbor, right? Because this is a consistent thing that we don't want our dog experiencing fear. That is impairing his enrichment. Another way to provide safe enrichment for your dog and the perception of safety is actually by naps. Most people overlook the fact that naps are enrichment. Sleeping is enrichment. And more importantly, we're chasing quality sleep, not quantity. So yes, the general estimation is that an average adult dog is going to sleep about 14 hours a day in a 24-hour period. Okay, right? And that's going to be varied. I really care less about the quantity of hours overall, and I care more about what is that quality made up of. What is actually happening in those sleeps? Are they in REM? Or do you notice that maybe your dog has a lot of bad dreams, right? Really chasing how much are they waking up and fearful. If your dog is often triggered when he's asleep, that can make him feel like he shouldn't be sleeping. Perception of safety comes in play with sleep because it's a very vulnerable position, right? When your dog is asleep, they're vulnerable. And so they have to feel as though they're in a safe environment in order to fall asleep and actually hit REM. Of course, physical health is a huge pillar of enrichment and making sure that you're taking your dog to the vet and you're really monitoring what their well-being is. And that includes little things like just their nail trims. But my favorite form of enrichment is actually learning. And I don't just mean teaching your dog sit or teaching your dog down. Those things are really, in my opinion, a little overrated when compared to all of the other wonderful things that your dog has to learn about the world. Really, my challenge for you is to make sure that your dog is learning one new thing every single day. And I don't mean one new skill. I'm not talking teach one new behavior to your dog every single day. You can teach behavior, but that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your dog discovers a bush for the first time. Your dog discovers a new type of fruit for the first time. Maybe your dog tries an apple for the first time, or a bell pepper. Maybe your dog is learning about a new scent, so he smells a new candle, right? Try to teach your dog one new thing about the world every single day. And not only are you going to see a change in your dog's overall enrichment, but secondly, you're going to actually see a difference in your dog's intelligence. You're going to see your dog has a better understanding of what the world around him is and how he can interact with it. Now, when you're thinking about actual enrichment games for your dogs, the truth of the matter is that food puzzles are good, okay? And even just putting food in a burrito and letting him hunt for it, that's all good and well, and I'm on board with it. But if you're looking for more opportunities for enrichment, I recommend you get my free download. It's in the description box below of 50 enrichment activities that you can do with your dog. Most of those activities you can do for free. So make sure you download that. It's in the description box below. But I do want to be clear that there's nothing wrong with food activities. Playing Find It or using a food puzzle, there's nothing wrong with that. All I'm saying is do not underestimate the power of parkour, of having your dog climb over things or under things. One of my favorite things is one of my clients in the RP, Jasper's, he likes to climb over some kid toys in the backyard, and he jumps up and over and under and crawls, and he has a blast. Do not underestimate the power of just going on a stroll and hunting through snow or leaves, right? These are all things that really add to your dog's understanding of what the world is. If you're looking for another video where you can learn about some specific activities that you can do with your dog right now, check out this video right here where I did with a bunch of free enrichment activities that you can do with your dog. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, hit like, consider subscribing, hit the notification bell so you get notified when I drop a new video, and I'll see you guys next week.